Are you serious? Are you serious, guys? Hey, I'm excited about this broadcast because we really have got to tackle a problem that's hitting America and around the world, really. But America has really taken a hit with depression and suicide. Matter of fact, a report just came out yesterday. Signs of depression have tripled in the United States since the virus pandemic got underway. The virus pandemic has touched pretty much every person in America one way or another. It shows in the state of our mental health, the lack of sleep, lethargic, feelings of hopelessness, other depression symptoms in adults across the country has more than tripled since the pandemic began, according to a new study. And in the weeks after the outbreak prompted quantities of stay-at-home orders, here's what's happened during the quarantine and everything else. 27.8% of those surveyed have at least one major symptom of depression, compared to only 8.5% of the people in 2017 and 2018. So guys, and it's not just depression, but it's absolute hopelessness, and to the point of nowhere else left to turn. And people feel like there's no way out. We really got to tackle this, and there's nobody better to help us with this than the man himself, Ronnie McMullen from GetTheT.com. We're so glad he's with us. Ronnie, this is a serious problem. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thanks, Paul. It's great to be on. Yes, it's a serious broadcast. It's a serious thing because everybody's going through it, not just the United States. This is something that is worldwide. People are suffering from depression. They're suffering from anxiety, from stress. They're suicidal at times because when you lose hope, you lose everything. And sometimes, I'll be like, boy, it just, looks like the glass is not even half empty. It's completely empty. We have to be aware of our senses, and we have to be aware of what comes into our minds and realize is something bigger than that. There's something positive that's bigger than that. And there always is something positive. We'll talk about that a little later.
It's true. And Ronnie, let's get down to this fact. I understand that the virus and how we've handled it, that seems like the goalpost is moved constantly. We're told one thing and then, oops, it's this. Nope, now you got to do that. Nobody's traveling. Restaurants are closing. Folks are dying also from heart conditions and diabetes. It's not even related to COVID because it can't get in the hospitals. People have been laid off. They don't know what's going to happen in the election. You got two different people running, and there's all kinds of things going on. I think that this is bigger than politics. I mean, it's something else behind all this. Can you help us understand it?
Well, this is a spiritual war, okay? And we went through a major spiritual war in the 30s, and it just wasn't on our land. It was a little bit on our land, but it was mostly in Germany. And it was basically anytime you have a takeover of power, okay, and you go against freedom, you have a spiritual war. We can go into, the Bible, we can go into spiritual books, and any time that freedom is taken away, you have a spiritual war. God made us free will. So the key here is to realize that we are not, and this is so funny how they paint things, okay? And let's just go there for a little bit. So they say it's the Democrats and the left and the right, and they use these words and these verbiage, and we'll call that the narrative. So it's the left, it's the right, it's the Democrats, it's the Republicans, and it's nothing like that. In the old days, winding the clocks back, if the Democrats went against the Republicans and they lost, they'd be like, rats, we did that wrong. We'll redo that and do it right next time. Or vice versa, Republicans go, man, we just didn't have our game on. We need to change up. But there was no super sour calling names, blah, 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 and guns and death and rioting. There was none of that. So now we have the Democrats and the Republicans, and the Democrats are saying things that are mind-blowing, that are coming against the president in so many different ways. It's a wonder they don't, you're fat, you're this, you're that. I mean, that's how bad it's gotten, and that is kind of weird. So this is not the Democrats against the Republicans. In my opinion, this is the new world order. And make no bones, this is not conspiracy, because President Herbert Walker Bush, said it in 1992 3 times on presidential speeches. 3 times. New World Order was brought up by Bill Clinton twice in presidential speaking. So this is something that is not a conspiracy theory. This is a conspiracy, which is to commit a crime.
Wow.
And if we're looking at this, it is a conspiracy to commit a crime because we're going to control everybody, which is not what we're supposed to do. Declaration of Independence makes it very clear that's not what we're supposed to do. We can go on and on. So this is really the New World Order against the Republic, not the Democrats against the Republicans. So this is the New World Order because they didn't like the old world order, which was freedom. Now, we didn't have complete freedom, but we had a heck of a lot more than we're going to have now. So we have something, and they needed something to shift their power to somehow take down the population. And they needed it to be bigger than the US. They needed it to be worldwide. But what would you do to make something worldwide and give everybody fear? So they would cry out, make sure you understand what I'm saying. So they would cry out for help. And who's there to help? The new Marxist government. The new, I'm in charge, we own you, and we are giving up our freedoms. Every time we wear a mask, we're giving up our freedoms. Because there's a lot of other flus that have come, and people have died from these flus. We never were told to wear a mask one time. So, and here's the other thing that's really weird. So, just in the United States, we had 176,000 deaths, not cases. Cases are so skewed, but deaths. And then they said, you know what? We need to revise this. So they revised it to 96,000 because they were putting COVID tags on people with car accidents, diabetes, cancer, so on. So cancer rate, diabetes rate for deaths went completely down since March. So that means that, he died. He died of complications. He had diabetes, but we're going to put COVID on there because he had COVID. So these numbers are skewed from the deaths and from the cases because the cases were 50% wrong. So we have something that is moving. And now the people are starting to open their eyes and say, this is weird. Now they're moving numbers down, they move them up, they scare us with this. The governors, if you notice in the blue states and the red states, the governors in the blue states are totally for rioting. And you don't have to wear a mask if you all come together and riot. But if you go into a restaurant where the restaurants are hurting so bad and they need your business and we want the food, no, we can't do that. Newsom, let's just do it on outside patios. Well, guess what? What if you're a restaurant that never had an outside patio? Then you're going to get just folding chairs and sit everybody outside. So we have a major problem, and this is a takeover of power. This is a loss of our freedom. And so the pandemic, which is really a plandemic, and when you look at Fauci, how many times have he changed his mind? Wearing a mask, don't wear a mask. Hydrochloroquine, no, yes, I don't know. He's changed left and right because he doesn't want to put a stamp and stay on the stamp because this is all planned. And he's with Bill Gates, and he's with, and I think this is interesting, Gates, Soros, and Fauci are a team. Now, what do you think about that? Gates has a vaccine, Fauci's the one that gives the yay or nay, and what do we have for Soros? What would be, oh yeah, he owns the media. So do we have a plan? And that's why I call it the plandemic. So it's being found out, people are waking up and they're saying, why am I wearing a mask here? I mean, they have papers set up to where we have to wear a mask inside our house with everyone, even with our family. That's what's coming down the pike. Or forced vaccination, and we can go on down that line. I don't think it's ever going to get there. But boy, we're going to have a backlash coming up. So this is really what's going on. Realize that if you vote for the left or the Democrats, that's freedom and choice, that's fine. Do your homework. Find out that you are going to have all of your health care taken away, and it's going to be a mandatory. If you want this health care, you'll have a mandatory vaccine. You'll have a card for COVID-19. I'm clear, but you're not going to be clear because they're talking about multiple vaccines Why? Because by the time they have a vaccine, there's a new strain. Hello?
So, Ronnie, I mean, this was a tremendous analogy of what's going on. And, you know, it really is. This is all about taking down a republic and moving it into this new world order, this new Marxist, super socialist, communistic regime. It's also godless, by the way. I mean, if you notice, the churches are not essential. And I mean, you know,
I think it's interesting too, not to interrupt you, but I think it's interesting too, when you talk about ID, which is intelligent design, okay? Intelligent design, the scientists have been working with for quite some time. And intelligent design is not aliens. Intelligent design is unexplainable. Where did we actually come from? So the religious right talks about, you know, we came from this, and this. And sometimes they go, well, that's just stories. But the scientists have actually studied so far down and gone so deep that they realize we didn't do this on our own. This was not the Big Bang Theory. This was not all these things that all the Darwinism people have talked about. So this is very interesting. So, and you can watch the movie. It's almost 8 years old now, called Expelled. And with Ben Stein narrating it. It's a very interesting documentary. But long and the short of it, basically, this intelligent design, I call it ID, gotta have your ID. So this intelligent design, which most people throw into the pot and say, this is God, this is infinite intelligence, this is something way bigger than we are, this is not something that's planned, man didn't do this, aliens didn't do this, this is something big. But Darwinism comes against, you know, we just came from monkeys, blah, 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 blah. And so when you look, and this is where it gets scary, when you look at Darwinism, and there's a lot of scientists, and they're actually firing scientists that go into the ID, that go into intelligent design and talk about that in their papers. If they write that, they're fired. Why? Why would you fire somebody for believing truthfully in a God? Why would you fire somebody? Because you want Darwinism. Darwinism is about taking power. It's about the white elite. It's about a lot of things that, and if you go back to the days of Hitler, interestingly enough, who was really a Darwinist? Adolf Hitler.
Yes, he was.
And so you look at this, and this is so when you said anti-God coming from the New World Order, you are dead on. Anti-God. And this is why I believe the ID is being removed and firing people so they don't teach that there is a God, that they teach Darwinism. We came from an ape. I'm sorry, I didn't come from an ape. Yeah, I love apes, but I'm sorry, I'm not one of them. So this is something that, again, the narrative. So they have all these narratives, and what it's all about, they want the rich and they want the poor. And you know what the poor is going to be for? Serving the rich. And the middle group is gone. So this is what they're up to.
It really is, folks. It really is. Ronnie McMullen with us from GetTheT.com. GetTheT.com. I'm telling you, you're on the money. You're on fire today, Ronnie. Folks, and if you want his products, don't forget, you can go to the website at www.getthet.com, or you can always call the number for an order at 928-308-0408. That's 928-308-0408. All right, now you've given us a pretty strong indication of the origin or the plan behind the virus. Now, let's look at the results of what it's doing to the people. Drug use up, depression up, suicide up, murder way high up, tension up, rioting up, hatred up, despair up. So we've become a country on edge, a world on edge, and people are going to a lot of different directions to try to find some kind of relief from this. And some people don't know where to turn, Ronnie. They really don't. And you know, the last thing you want to see is people just completely zoned out, from some pharmaceutical stuff. So is there something we can naturally do? Is there some better eating? Is there stuff we can eat, supplements we could take, things we could do to make us feel better? Now, I'm looking at your specials right now for the month. You've got apple cider, joint leave, I think it's called, joint love,
cider vinegar plus, and tea.
And the
Great.
eighth
I
element.
want to go on an antidote for all the negative stuff that I just shared with everybody, because that's just going to increase their fear and their cortisol and all of that, and get some chemistry.
Yeah, I'm bouncing my head off the wall. Help me, Ronnie.
So let's talk about some positive things. So I'm going to ask you a question, Paul. So when you're doing something really, really fun and great, you're just having a ball. I mean, you're just, yoo-hoo! How many times have you ever run into a miracle while you're having fun?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Miracle.
a miracle. Well, miracle's a little tough to come by. They're not a dime a dozen. No.
Okay. Now, if you're going through something really, really, really bad, I mean, you almost can't take it. How often do you find a miracle in that?
You will find it in despair. You will find it when people have really nowhere left to turn. Sometimes that's when the miracles happen. I agree.
So, with that being our analogy, it's going to get darker, people. We have a fall of an economy that probably starts this month. And these are things that, we're either going to hit inflation or there won't be a dollar to our name. I don't know. Everybody's different. You have little sidekicks. Watch the precious metals. They're moving up. So that is an indicator. And this is not to make people scared, but this is when God shows up. This is when God shows up. And that's the whole analogy. If you're having fun, usually God's not going to show up with some kind of miracle when you're having a yippee-yi-yay time. And the reason for that is because you're not going to pay attention to it. You're not going to pay attention that God just moved, that God just did something. Does that mean God is dead when you're having fun? Not at all.
No.
It just means that when you're having fun, you're not paying attention. You're wanting to have your fun. But when you're in despair and there's nowhere to turn and hopelessness is surrounding you like a blanket, then all of a sudden, guess what? God shows up on the scene and throws a miracle in your life. Something that you can't do. Something that a friend or a family member can't do. Something that's over the top. Now, unfortunately, we see that everybody is in despair. The numbers are high. This is what Paul was talking about. So we see that our nation's in despair. We also see that the world is in despair. And what happens is when we're in despair, we actually get humbled. And if you'll humble yourself before God, guess what? He shows up. So the point here I want to make is it might be looking like it's bad, but trust me, there's an armor coming. There's a war force coming that is invisible, something you cannot see. Everybody's going to be looking for something. Don't look. The Bible talks about it. Don't look for me here. Don't look for me here. It's going to come in an invisible way. And they and them that I talk about much, that think they're winning, that think they're taking our control, which actually they're not taking our control. And this is really irritating to me. We're giving them our freedom.
That's right.
We're giving it to them. They're not taking it. They might take it later, but if they can get the first third or the first 2/3 of the people to just hand over their freedom and enslave themselves, and really if you're voting Biden, you're going to enslave yourself, because all the freebies is a joke. They're printing money as fast as they can. Money is going to be like toilet paper. It happened to Asia in the late 90s. The late 90s. It happened to Asia. So it's going to happen to us, where we're going to have a $20 bill and you might as well use it for toilet paper. So this is where we have to realize that it's important for us to stay focused, not hand our freedoms over. This doesn't mean we need to get our guns and be in the streets. That's exactly what they want. Now, we need to be smarter than that. We need to just kind of hunker down. And this is where, and this is not just to sell product, but supplements it's important to have supplements, because, we were talking, Paul, about fasting, and I want to bring that up for a little bit. We were talking about your fasting, and tell the people what you've lost.
Yeah, I've lost officially 5 pounds. I had lost a little more than that, and I creeped back a little bit because I stumbled. But at least since, Ronnie, you were here last time, I am right now 5 pounds lower. I've been doing the intermittent fasting. Also, when I do eat, watching very closely what I eat. And this is helping, and I'm doing some protein shakes to hold me over during that 16, 17, 18 hours of fasting. And I'm excited. 5 pounds lighter in 3 weeks. I'm telling you, I'm excited about it, Ronnie. And I've got my body and my mind going in the right direction. But you got to supplement your way also, because you got to keep the protein and the vitamins up. So that's important, isn't it?
It's interesting. Okay, so everybody thinks that if you're fasting, that your digestive's not going to work. It actually works twice as hard. So what happens is when you take a supplement on a normal stomach where you've had food, the food kind of surrounds the supplement, you don't get all the supplement. But when you have nothing in your tummy except water, guess what? Boom, that supplement gets in there and it does its job immediately. So if you've got a B complex, like the essential Bs, that's going to start working on your nervous system. It works quickly. Things work quickly. You're wanting to take your blood sugar and get it in the right range. And this is where what's cool is when you buy Jason Fung's book, The Intermediate Fasting, The Guide to Intermediate Fasting, this is something where that book tells you kind of what to expect. You're not going to feel humdrum. You're going to have more energy because you have less food to move around. So your 5 pounds, Paul, is wonderful. You stay on this, next month you're going to be saying it's 10 pounds. And then it's going to be 15 pounds, and so on and so forth. I've lost 12. I've been on it about 6 weeks. And people say, well, there's other diets you could lose a lot more weight and go faster. Yeah, and it comes right back on. So I'm between 10 and 12 pounds, and that's where it kind of moves. And then all of a sudden it moves to maybe a 13, and then it'll come, 11 to 13. And so going up and down a pound, don't forget you have water weight, okay? So if you go pee, you can lose weight. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. So just realize that this is a longer term, and it's a healthy term. And it doesn't just don't look at this as just a diet. This is a reset of your cells. And when you reset your cells, a lot of disease seems to change. And I would go into great things, but we'd have the suits all over me if I told you really what this fasting does. I'll just tell you this, my eyes have gotten better. I can say this because it's just me. My eyes have gotten better. Blood sugars cut by about 40%, 12 pounds off, more energy. It's all good. And there's other things as well, because just so you know, a lot of us, when we have weight on us or we have diabetes, we also have this booger called inflammation. When you have inflammation, everything hurts, and it can get you in your gut, it can get you in your shoulders, in your neck, in your head, give you headaches, and we can go on. With this intermediate fasting, it takes it down so that you don't have inflammation. So anyway, going back, so supplementing is good. Realize the time zone we're in, because if for some reason Biden does win, healthcare is going to be a whole new ballgame, and it's not going to be healthcare at all. It's going to be health force, and nothing goes good with force.
Ronnie, you speak of force. Again, guys, I'll ask him a question on this. GetTheT.com. That's www.getTheT.com. Or you can pick up the phone and call your orders in at 928-308-0408. That's 928-308-0408. Ronnie, they're talking about also, and this might be another reason for the depression. Some folks are absolutely paranoid to even go out. There's people have never left their home since March. And oh, by the way, the elderly population in the nursing homes have not had visitation yet since March. Elderly people, no family can visit them, cooped up in a room. They're already in a tough time in life, okay, when you're there. Yeah. So they're dying like flies, and part of it, I think, is hopelessness. But I want to ask you a question. This is very serious. We talked about it last night on our interview with Mike Around the World, and we've also read articles that SWAT teams, New York is going to be first. These are coronavirus SWAT teams. If there's a cluster of people getting the virus in let's say, a college dorm area or wherever, a team of 71 hazmat wearing professionals will just canvass a neighborhood, knock on doors, stop cars, swab the nose. They'll do whatever they got to do to try to lock this thing down or to identify it. Ronnie, this is one of the things Biden's been talking about. He really would like to see. He thinks you got to lock it and kill it. What is your thought? You talk about forced medicine. What kind of a force would you call a task force, a SWAT team for coronavirus?
Well, I just wonder when they're going to get the rail cars up and put us in concentration camps, because that's the next step. So this is just like Germany. It is a carbon copy. And what they're going to do is they're going to televise this in New York. And New York is what a state? Blue state? Okay. So they're going to televise this. And here's the thing. And I remember speaking to Air Force about this. And they said, we don't need 50 concentration camps, 100 concentration camps, and there's actually 850 about right now. We don't need those because we can control everybody with one. I said, well, how do you do that with one? All we do is we get everybody and we put them in that one and we televise it. And as soon as we televise it, everybody will do exactly what we say. If we say go outside, they'll go outside. If I say strip, they'll strip. It doesn't matter. They will do exactly what they say just by watching the narrative.
Maybe this Big Brother, Big Brother's been on for 25 years on CBS, where you put 12, 14 people in a house and you cameras surveilling everything they do and watch the dynamics. We got used to the voyeurism watching this. So you're saying some kind of MK Ultra voyeurism, some kind of, you want to go to this camp? Break the rules. This is where you'll be, okay? And this is the way it's going to... And AOC says we need to shut down the airplanes. We got too many. They don't need to be flying. The carbon footprint, they're trying to save the earth. Well, they pretty well shut down the airplanes. Nobody can really travel. If you do, you got to be quarantined 14 days. Ronnie, you are on the money, what we're really seeing here. I got to say something. This is why, guys, you might want to drink more tea, okay? Okay, you're going to need to flush all this out of your system because this is crazy. Melatonin also. You've got some of that also on your website. And this ocean sleep. Tell us about it, Ronnie.
Melatonin and ocean sleep. Those are beautiful. Melatonin just kind of kicks down. It does the chemistry. It kind of balances out cortisol. So in cortisol is the fight or flight, that you get that fear. So, and we all have it right now. And we don't have fear for really what they're going to do because we don't know what they're going to do. We have narrative of what they're going to do, but always remember this, and I've said this so many times. So we have let's just call it 325 million people in the United States. How many bad guys do we have? I mean, ruthless, kill you in the street, whatever. How many do you think we have? Let's mark it way up because it's not this high, but let's say there's 10 million of these guys that are just killers. And then we have followers. We have people that'll follow the orders. They won't want to follow the orders. They won't want to kill people. They won't want to, lock people up and take their guns. They're not like that, but they're following orders. How many of those people do we have? Let's give them a big number. Let's give them 25 million. There's 25 million followers. And these are people that are in police states. They're in hired military, all this kind of stuff. So that means we have 35 million people that are not good, okay? And part of those, the 25 million, some of those are going to turn to the good side because they just can't take it anymore. So let's just call it 35 million. Now let's do it again. How many people are in the United States? 335 million. So if we take that, or even if we say there's 325, and you take off 35 million, what you have is 290 million or 300 million people that are on the right side. They're on the good side. They're like going, we can do something. So all this to say, we outnumber them. Even with their AI, we outnumber them. Because they can have all their fancy technology, and they have it, but they still have to have somebody that runs the drone planes. They still have to have somebody that runs the tank. They still have to have somebody that runs the SWAT truck. They still have to have somebody answering the calls at the base, so at the police station. So they don't have enough people to do it. So this is why they're going to make an example, New York, and they're going to say, here's the narrative. Blah, blah, blah. So everybody goes, wow, I don't want that to happen, so I'm not going to go out. So if you don't go out to have your pizza, or if you don't go out to get your groceries or whatever, what's going to happen to the economy? Oh, yeah, stiff slide. Well, guess what? I believe Trump knows all this, and so he's got a plan, and he does. He has a plan. But he's not going to broadcast that plan right now because then he's going to be telling the bad guy what he's doing. So this is not, a lot of people go, I don't like Trump. I've literally watched people hate Trump so much, and I'll say, do you know much about Biden? No. I just hate Trump. So you're going to vote for Biden because you hate Trump. Even though you don't know Biden's or Kamala Harris, you don't know Camilla Horror, you don't know their game plan, where Pelosi's going to step into the presidency. That's what the dying deal is. You don't know that game plan, but because your hatred is so heavy, because you don't like tweets or you don't like, oh, he's an authoritarian. Of course he is. He's got to be authoritative. If he's not authoritative, nothing's going to get done. So he has to be. To be the swamp, you have to be a leader. You have to give orders. And that's what he does. And I'm behind him because if he gives these orders, we might stand a chance. Even if he is elected, we are going to go through 3 or 4 months of hell. And it's going to be a tough run. So gear up, get your supplements, get your, take your walks, go do something fun, give your kids a hug and tell them you love them. Give your parents a hug and tell them you love them, because you don't know what's coming, and that's where our fear is coming from, the unknown. But again, we'll go back to the last thing and leave it with this. The fact of the matter is, when times are dark, that's when the miracles show up. Always know that's truth.
Tremendous. What a sermon. What a sermon, Ronnie. Seriously. You tied it right up real nice. And it's the truth. Guys, the miracles come. The darkest hour is just before dawn. Okay? And Ronnie is so right. So get your supplements. Go over to www.getthetea.com. Make sure you have everything you need. Stay on course. And if you want to start doing intermittent fasting, get the book that Ronnie mentioned, or just learn about it and get going with that. But you got to supplement yourself as you go, because as you're losing weight, you got to make sure you keep your protein and your vitamins up. Stay healthy, build up that immune system, and stay healthy. And stay focused and stay happy, all right? It's going to be better. It's if we do the right things. And Ronnie has told us, get behind the president, stand behind the president, because he's the one guy who's standing up against the darkness. He's not perfect. Neither am I, and I'm sure neither are you. But at least he's the man that has been chosen. And God chooses the kings. He's been chosen to stand up against the darkness. Ronnie, again, getthetea.com. Call the number if you want to call in and get one of his great products there at 928-308-0408. Of course, get the tea. Get the tea, folks. Plus, get in on those specials he's got this month, and be blessed and stay hopeful, because it's going to get better. Ronnie, I appreciate you coming on and being with us. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Guys, we'll see you next time right here on The Coming Apocalypse. Are you serious?